Welcome to the Pre-Chiro Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Glass, and today we're making a professional chiropractor connection out in North Carolina with Dr. Ray Drury. Dr. Drury, can you get us started by just introducing yourself and also reflecting on that moment when you decided you wanted to become a chiropractor? What was it that attracted you to this path?
Okay, well, it's a good question. Actually, it's got a little story behind it. So ever since ninth grade, I knew I wanted to be a doctor. All right. Well, only because I knew I wanted to help people. And so people around me like, well, you better buckle down. You got to have good grades and all this stuff. And so my whole intent was to be a doctor, only because medical doctor was all I really knew of a way to help people. So I went through high school and did well, went into college, took all my prereqs. Actually, even when I was in high school, we had a program called Experience-Based Career Education, EBCE. And so I would go to school in the morning and till like 11 o'clock. And then I would leave school and I'd go to the University of Kentucky into the surgery center and observe surgeries the rest of the day for like 2, 3, 4 hours. And that was cool. I got to learn a lot. The first couple of weeks, I had a nurse that would take me and put me in different rooms. And then eventually they're like, oh, you're here. Yeah, go suit up. And, I could just dive in and out of rooms and watch. It was really cool. So I learned a lot that way. But I also learned a lot about things that, I didn't like about the profession. And then it so happens that when I was in 10th grade, my parents were divorced. They lived about an hour apart from each other. But my dad basically told me that we were in Kentucky, but he was moving to Kansas City, Missouri to go to Cleveland College to become a chiropractor. And I didn't really know much about chiropractic. I was like, okay, you're going to work on backs or whatever. Well, it so happened my dad had a low back problem, sciatic problem, and he could live with that. But then all of a sudden his prostate started bothering him. Well, he went to a chiropractor for the low back problem, and in the process, his prostate problem cleared up. So my dad was a concrete salesman. So he started going to this chiropractor's office and following him around, just observing. And it so happened, I didn't find out this until way later, but the guy that he saw used to work in the BJ Palmer Research Center. So he's an old school chiropractor. But he would tell my dad the philosophy, and my dad would follow him around, after hours when he wasn't selling concrete, and just got real interested in it. 37, he moved to Kansas City and went to chiropractic school. So I only saw him, a couple weeks over Christmas, a couple weeks in the summer. So we really never talked a whole lot about chiropractic except for when we were together. So I was still going on my way through, to get ready for medical school. And he graduated my sophomore year in college. And that summer, we finally got back together, which we used to do all the time, to go fishing. And we'd go spend a week in Tennessee, just he and I, bass fishing. We grew up fishing together and stuff, Well, while we were there, I took my MCAT applications. I was working on them when I wasn't fishing. And he started just kind of telling me, the philosophy behind chiropractic, the idea, that, somebody comes in to see you, let's say they have headaches, right? What are you going to do for them? And so me thinking from a medical standpoint, well, we'll find out what's causing the headaches. And then what are you going to do? Well, I'll write them a prescription. And he's like, okay, so do you really think that, let's say you wrote them a prescription for Tylenol, whatever. Do you really think that the lack of Tylenol was the cause of those headaches? I was like, well, and then he goes, let me rephrase it. Do you think anyone's ever had a headache because they had a Tylenol deficiency? I was like, well, no, not really. Right. So he got the ball rolling, got me kind of thinking about things. And then a week of him explaining to me about the nerve system and, the brain stem and the messages from the brain to the body. By the end of that conversation, and of course I was kind of stubborn. I planned on for 4, 5, 6 years going to medical school. We went back and forth. And by the time we were done on that fishing trip, I felt like if I became a medical doctor, my dad was going to abuse me for the rest of my life. And by abuse, I mean, every argument that I put up, he just kicked right out from under me. So it just made more sense to me. I didn't admit it to him at the time because, we're both a little bit hard headed. I get it honestly. But when I got back home, I actually went and visited a few other chiropractors in the area. And shadowed them a little bit, some better than others as in any profession, but I still got the basic philosophy behind it. So that's when I decided, instead of going to medical school, I was going to chiropractic school. Good thing is I was already in the process of getting all my pre-med, prereqs. And I wound up at Logan College. And the only reason I did, not to take anything away from any school, but my dad knew someone that went to Palmer that said, don't go there. My dad knew someone that went to Life that said, don't go there. And my dad went to Cleveland and he said, don't go there. We didn't know anyone that went to Logan. So by default, that's where I went. But it was great. It was a good experience for me. And, I learned a lot about what not to do and, some what to do. So that's kind of how I got
two things. Two things. One, I would love for you to just swipe down and put do not disturb on your phone, just because I imagine if you're getting texts or phone calls that it's going to interrupt our feed. If you could just do that and we can edit this part out. You know how to scroll the top screen down and put it to do not disturb?
No, I don't.
You have an iPhone or an Android?
iPhone. I just scrolled down, but I don't know what the do not disturb looks like.
Oh, do you see a half moon shaped thing?
Yeah.
So hit that.
Okay. Done.
All right, we're good.
Cool.
And now, progressing forward in this conversation, I would love for you to just imagine you have a high school or college student sitting with you in your office, or that is maybe a family friend's kid, and you're just having a conversation with them and helping build context for them on why they might want to consider becoming a chiropractor, what is unique and distinct about chiropractic, and how they should maybe start to think about and investigate what they're going to be doing for the rest of their life as a healthcare provider, and maybe why chiropractic is actually in alignment with their values.
Okay. All right. So I would say to anyone who's considering what they want to do in life, right? I have a couple teenage daughters, and they're at that point in their life where they're trying to figure out everything. And I told them very honestly that it is the most rewarding, but yet most frustrating profession on the planet. And that's the truth. I mean that honestly, because I say that because we as chiropractors have the potential to help anyone with pretty much any condition. Okay. I mean, we can improve upon anything. And there's a lot of, we all have a lot of miracle stories of people that come to us from all over the world. And we were able to drastically change their life. My whole office is full of testimonial boards all over the place from people literally from everywhere, Europe and Canada and Mexico. And so from that standpoint, it's amazing, right? So rewarding every day. I'm excited. I've been doing it. Next year will be my 30th year in practice. And I still get up in the morning and look forward to going to work, which is something that I always said that, if I ever am in a profession that I don't get excited or look forward to being there, then I need to find another profession. And so that's why I've stuck around for 30 years. Now, I say it's the most frustrating because there's so many people that just don't even know what we do. They don't understand what we do as chiropractors, and they don't give their body enough credibility that it has everything it needs to be well, that it can actually heal itself. Doesn't need any help, but just can't be interfered with. And that's what we do as chiropractors. We find the interference, remove the interference, and just open up the body's own innate ability to take care of itself. And it's amazing what can happen when we do that. And so the frustrating part is the fact that I have people literally come to me staying in hotels for months at a time from all over the world. And there's thousands of people drive right up and down the road, right in front of my office every day, that are suffering from the same things or possibly even worse. They could get help, but don't know it. And I think the biggest reason is because there's not enough of us telling the story. I do classes in my office. We need more doctors out there telling people what we do. So yes, absolutely most rewarding profession on the planet, just the potential to change lives. At the same time, the frustrating part is that, there is no competition in chiropractic. I mean, you can have 6 chiropractors in the same shopping center. The competition is ignorance. It's people just don't know. And so that's where we come in. And that's why we got to work together to, to get the word out there and tell people about what we do. So I hope that gets a little better.
Absolutely. So yeah, no, thank you for that. I appreciate it. If you could maybe reflect on your time developing yourself into a chiropractor, the types of skills you developed, the types of pathways that you explored in your journey, and what you kind of settled with, and why you settled in
Okay. Sure.
in the
So
direction and the specific expression of chiropractic that you did.
Okay. Yeah, I love to. So everyone's a little different, right? Every chiropractor goes their certain something led them down that road. So for me, remember I said my dad said the body is a self-healing organism. And if we can remove the interference, then the body heals. Well, so while in my dad's practice, when I decided that's what I wanted to do, I went there and I observed and I saw sometimes people got better, sometimes they didn't. Musculoskeletal stuff, almost always. Neck pain, back pain, headaches, very good. But there are times where somebody might come in with digestive issues that they cleared up within 2 or 3 visits. Sometimes they never cleared up. Some people had allergies that cleared up. Sometimes they didn't. Sometimes people slept better. Some didn't. Some all these different changes, but it was nothing like completely consistent from what I could tell. So when I got into chiropractic school, I went there with the intent. I'm thinking, you know what? This stuff either works or doesn't. So I'm going to prove that it either does or it doesn't. It either works. If it works, it should work pretty much all the time or most of the time. If it doesn't, if it's sporadic and works only on some people than other people, then we need to know that too. So when I got into school, I was looking for something that makes the most sense to me. And we at Logan, they did a lot of motion palpation, diversified, and it was a very general move. And it talked a lot about removing fixations, motion palpation, you move the same bone in 6, 7 different directions. And to me, I was looking for a way to, how do you know when you actually did something or didn't do something, or when you should do something or shouldn't do something? And so at first I started to get a little bit into a Gonstead, which is a technique that x-rays, and they also use a scope to measure nerve pressure, nerve interference. And I really like that because it gave you objective tools, right? X-rays, you can actually see how the bones are positioned so you can understand how to reposition them. An instrument to kind of help guide you on where you need to adjust and when. And I started getting adjusted that way. And I did okay, but then my health kind of started going downhill. And it may have been because I had, students practicing on me. I don't know, but I actually got to the point where I got pretty sick. I wasn't sleeping well. Had a chronic metal taste in my mouth. My gums were bleeding like constantly. I brushed my teeth and just spit out all blood. My energy was bad. I ached from head to toe. I got real stupid. School was always been pretty simple for me, and I would study for hours at a time. And I'd get up from the table to go get something to drink, and I'd come back and I couldn't remember anything. And that was weird for me. So ultimately, I met a guy at a seminar that did this upper cervical work. And he's like, hey, man, we talked for a little bit. He said, yeah, I do upper cervical. Here's my card. You should come check it out. In my mind, my first thought was, why would anybody do just those bones, right? There's 24 vertebrae. Do the other 22 and do those too. I mean, why not? It just don't make sense to me. Well, I got to a point where I was getting adjusted by the doctors at the school, and my health was still declining. I mean, I felt like crap all the time. So finally I called this guy up and I'm like, yeah, I want to come check out what you do. Okay, come on down. So I went down, he x-rayed me. He ran this meter up my neck that plotted a graph on a computer. Gave me an adjustment. I laid down for about 15 minutes, allowed things to kind of, mold a little bit. And then he post-checked me. It was a Titron that he used, but he post-checked me. And all I know was the crooked line got straight. And he said, man, that looks great. And I was like, okay, whatever. Right. So I left and drove back home. It was about an hour and a half drive. When I got home, as soon as I pulled in the driveway, I just immediately had like this cold sweat that just hit me out of the blue. And I took off trying to get into the house and didn't make it. I threw up all over the front porch. So I go into the bedroom, rinse my mouth out, lay down on the bed, lights on, fully dressed. Woke up 12 hours later in the exact same position, lights on, fully dressed. And now I'm thinking, man, that dude, he messed me up. Not only, I mean, I was sick before, but I wasn't sick. And then he had just knocked me out for 12 hours. So I get up and I go in and brush my teeth. No blood, completely clear. And I thought, no, that's weird. I thought coincidence. Finally, Gumps. Well, so that doctor called me later on that afternoon. He's like, hey, I just want to check and see how you did after your first adjustment. And I was like, man, I don't think I'll be back. You know, I mean, I didn't do so good, man. I got sick. I passed out, you know, and he's like, man, that's awesome. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, think about it. Man, you had a virus in your system. We adjusted. Your body woke up. What's the quickest exit, you know, out the front door? Next thing I knew, you know, my whole body started to change. At first, I was still kind of reluctant to realize, like, man, that's still a little bit crazy, a little extreme for what I knew about chiropractic. But I will tell you, day by day by day, my whole life changed. I felt better. I slept better. My energy was better. My focus was better. My studying improved. Even my vision, I noticed, improved. So that's when I was like, okay, there's something to this. And so I started going and learning from Michael Kale, who was at the time the only person who taught it. And I was actually at a seminar and I was asking him all these questions. And there was a DE seminar. I don't know if you've ever been to one of those, but there was like 3,000 people there. And at the end of his speech was the only time Dr. Kill would adjust people. Well, as soon as he finished, this line started to form that went out of the room, down the hall. There were several hundred people in the line, and they all knew Dr. Kill's finished. Time to, and even I saw some of the other speakers that were there to in line, just like the students or whoever, to get adjusted by Dr. Kill. So while he's adjusting people, I'm just asking him, well, you know, what happens if you were to adjust, you know, fifth lumbar and do this? Why not do both? And, you know, and he's just kind of rattling questions, answers back and forth with me until finally he walks over and he grabs this book, and it happens to be a green book, volume 18, the Association Civic Adjustment Specific. And he pushed it into my chest, and he said, hey, boy, he's a Southern guy. He said, I don't want you to ask me another question until you read this book. You read this book, and if you still have questions, call me, and I'll answer those questions. I was like, okay. So I took that book home. It's a big, thick book, but while in school, it took me about a month to read. But I tell you, man, by the time I read it, it answered all my questions and kind of got me going. And I started going to Dr. Kill's seminars from St. Louis. We traveled to Spartanburg for the seminars every other month. I did that for 2 years. By the time I graduated, I was sold hook, line, and sinker. And that's all I've done now ever since. Wouldn't change it for anything.
Can you say that again?
I wouldn't change it for anything.
Can you kind of continue to unpack this upper cervical approach, contextualize it for prospective students and current students of maybe the unique specific approach that you've taken, what it was in volume 18 that you learned, maybe touch on a couple of things that you took away from volume 18, or maybe even just give some questions that students can enter into reading volume 18 with?
Okay, for sure. So I read volume 18, and of course, all the questions, you know, and honestly, it's really the students and other chiropractors. I say we're kind of educatedly constipated because we're kind of taught a certain way that, you know, the entire spinal cord and all the vertebrae that come out and everything, and that you need to do more is, you know, better and all this stuff. And patients, honestly, they don't give a crap. Honestly, they walk in and no matter what's going on, you say, you know, I need to kick you in the butt to fix this problem. They're going to bend over and grab their ankles. They don't care. It's only in our mind that, you know, we got to do more. We need to do, you know, they have sciatica. We got to go where the sciatic nerve is, you know, stuff like that. Well, when I started reading volume 18, it didn't refer so much to the spinal cord and the nerves that come out. It referred more about the brainstem, because at the brainstem where the nerves decussate, the left controls right, right controls left, and it goes to the heart, the liver, the lungs, the kidneys, the arms, the leg. Research that BJ Palmer did, which is more than anyone's ever done to this day, 16 years of consistent research, every single patient, the worst of the worst cases, they found that BJ started off in the research center going up and down 3 times the spine, adjusting every vertebra there was. And then slowly over time, he found that he could do less and get more until finally, and this is from x-ray, pre and post, instrumentation, from doing blood, spit, urine analysis, he found that he actually got more results, better results by doing less, and narrowed it down to one of the top two vertebrae in the spine, atlas or axis. And it's because the brain stem comes through there, and the brain stem sends all the messages from the brain to every single part of the body. And if there's a misalignment there, putting pressure on the brain stem, that can interfere with how the stomach works. It can interfere with your blood pressure, which research has already been shown. It can interfere with how you sleep, and then on top of that, your head sits on top of those two bones. So anywhere, I should have atlas and axis up here somewhere, but anyway, anywhere those bones go, it takes the head. Okay, what that will do is throw the brain off balance.
The brain doesn't know and understand the
Uh-oh.
future and the past.
I'm sorry.
So when you're overwhelmed about something that
I accidentally clicked on a podcast or something. Okay. So when that bone moves, it takes the head, throws the brain off balance. Well, the brain doesn't like it. There's a reflex called the righting reflex. And the whole purpose is then to make the body compensate in an attempt to level the brain again. Okay. When that bone moves, the body can't unmove it because it gets stuck. So it'll force other parts of the body to shift and change so it levels the head. That creates an imbalance in the spine all the way down to the feet, usually pulling one leg shorter than the other. So those compensations over time become weak spots that can turn into neck pain, upper back, lower back, hip pain, foot pain, knee pain. And then even the vertebrae that are stacked on top of each other, they can start to turn and bend a little bit, which can cause a wedging or bulging of the disc. That can affect the nerves down the arms, the nerves that go down the leg. So that made a lot of sense to me. And then the fact that you take an x-ray, very specific x-ray, all three different angles of the upper neck, see exactly how those bones are positioned. And the more specific you are, the better the body reacts. And then we have instrumentation. So we have a way to check the body to see if there's nerve pressure. We make an adjustment. We rest them. It gives it a chance to kind of strengthen back up so the adjustments hold. Then we check them again with the same instrument. And we want to see that the pressure that was there is now gone. And the patients, that's all they really care about, right? Is, okay, this is where you were when you came in. Now look and see where you are now. You can see the pressure that was there is now gone. And now the body will start to heal. Well, what will happen is they'll start to come in and you'll check them and you'll see that the line's still straight, meaning that there's still no pressure from the last visit because their adjustment starts to hold. That's when the patients really get excited. That's when I get excited because I know as long as they're holding their adjustment, then that brain to body communication has been open and the body's healing and it's going through the change that it needs, trying to get itself back to center and trying to get trying to heal itself. And so it just takes a lot of pressure off of the doctor trying to determine, when do I need to do something? When should I not? How do I move this bone left, right, front to center? This way we have a very specific analysis with the x-ray that tells us, right there, that's the answer. That's what you got to do. And then we have an objective tool to check people to say, oh, we need to do something, or no, we need to stay away from it. Everything's good. It just makes it a lot easier for us. And not to mention, it helps open us up to, again, like I said before, I have people come to me from all over the world with the craziest conditions. Nothing surprises me now. Just about anything can heal if we just, free up that innate intelligence, the power that made that body, and let it do its work. And the body's miraculous. That makes sense?
And thank you for that. I appreciate you going into detail about that. Absolutely. Can you kind of discuss what you have done to set your practice up to provide this specialized type of care? What would somebody expect to experience when they come into your practice? What are people experiencing? What are you experiencing as the chiropractor? Like, what's your life like? How often are you working? How do you go in and expect your day to go? And just, what types of things are you doing and seeing as a chiropractor?
Wow. Boy, that's a lot of stuff, man. We could be here all night. So, all right. So patients first come into us and we'll talk the patient's perspective and then my perspective. Okay. So patients call, they make an appointment. They come in, we do a consultation, basically get a little history on what they've been through, where they are currently, and then we will do an exam. We do palpation, we do range of motion, and we do our scan. And then if we find that there is a problem from those previous examinations, then we'll say, yes, there's a problem. Now what we got to do is find out what's causing the problem. So we're going to take x-rays. We x-ray them. And the way I do it is, it takes me a little while to read the x-ray. So there's 274 ways just the top two bones can move. So we schedule them to come back the next day or another follow-up visit for me to go over the x-rays. On that visit, I have prepared recommendations for them. I will go over the x-rays with them, show them what I found, and then based off of my findings, I'll say, this is what I recommend we do. And I recommend a series of visits, a plan, and then we talk about, this is how much it's going to cost, and then they agree. And then we make the first adjustment. They lay down, we check them again to make sure everything looks good. And then from that point on, now we do some educational videos and stuff. We're trying to teach them. Again, I said our biggest obstacle is education and trying to make sure people understand. So the first 4 visits, I've created a video that they sit in the consultation room and watch, and it just kind of prepares them for what's coming, explains to them what we're looking for, how the body can react, that kind of thing. But other than that, they come in and I check them. If they need to be adjusted, they get adjusted. They lay down, we post-check them, they leave. It's that simple. If they don't get adjusted, they come in, we check them. Hey, Miss Jones, your adjustment's holding. You're doing great. I will see you Wednesday. And then they say, okay, great, doc. I love you so much. And then they leave, right? So from the patient standpoint, it's pretty simple. And it's really simple to understand. I've never lost a patient because, you didn't adjust my low back. I've never done that. And so because once they understand it, they don't really care. If they say, well, if the problem's coming from up here, people always say, well, how come my pain's here, but you're saying the problem's here? And I'm like, well, if you step on a dog's tail, where does he bark? Okay, well, the problem is the stepping's going on up here. We got to remove the stepping, and then, the dog will quit barking back here. Make sense? And very simple, never a problem. Now, from my standpoint, so I moved to North Carolina right after school, opened my first practice on my own. And actually, the first 3 months, so my dad kind of gave me some poor advice because my dad bought an existing practice in the town he grew up in when he got out of school. My dad never advertised a day in his office, not one time ever. And he always had a consistent flow of patients. Well, when I went to a state, I didn't know anyone. And I put up my sign and I sat around the office like, where is everybody? And then I realized pretty quickly that they don't know who I am or what I do or anything about me. So I basically started getting out in the community and introducing myself, talking to people anywhere I could. I would go and do presentations to groups and stuff. Well, from that point, practice started to go really quickly. As a matter of fact, I opened my second practice 11 months after the first one. Now, I don't recommend that. Not very smart because I just doubled my overhead and had one doctor. So I was working 6 days a week, 3 days in each. And I was running my butt off. But the thing is, I was single. I loved what I did. I mean, I worked till we scheduled our last patient at 7:00 at night, 6 days a week. I mean, I ran my butt off, but I loved it. I mean, that was my heart, my passion. That's what I wanted to do. And it went well. Eventually I wound up getting smart and I sold one of them and I brought a doctor into that one and that practice like quadrupled in like 3 months, just like that, because all my energy was split. So in the meantime, I have opened a total of 13 practices. And I've had over 20 associate doctors that have come and worked with me. And most of them have successful practices all over the country now. Right now, I currently have 3, one in Nashville, Tennessee, one in Wilmington, North Carolina, and one in Charlotte. This is where I live and it's where I primarily practice right now. I would say if you are the kind of person that is willing to go out and work and go out, you passionate about it, if you find that you love chiropractic, there's plenty of places that'll give you a job. I need doctors in all 3 of those offices right now. I mean, if I had the right person came along, I'd be like, and that's the problem. We have a shortage of chiropractors, like I said. So we need people in this profession. There's never been a better time to be a chiropractor. The whole COVID thing has changed the mentality of the world away from, they don't trust medicine so much as they used to. And the people have just started looking for alternative ways like they've never done before to be well, boost their immune system. And they're starting to trust the non-medical providers more and more. I mean, that's since I've been in practice, but especially over the last 3-4 years. So it's never been a better time. So yeah, if you like the Carolinas or even the, Nashville, Tennessee, call me. We'll find you. We'll find you a spot.
Mm-hmm. So just to keep building context for you, Doc, the project is about pre-chiropractic, and really we've never dedicated ourselves as a profession to the pre-chiropractic student and really tried to prepare them mentally and challenged them to think about chiropractic at a level that by the time they get to chiropractic school, they've already read and experienced in offices and really started to communicate chiropractic and get an experience for what it's like to be a chiropractor before they even go to school. So I'm curious if a student has already learned about chiropractic, what it is, what it's about, thought about it, heard from chiropractors, they've gone to offices, gotten care, gotten experience working in offices, spending time in offices, observing different types of offices, gotten some mentorship, and now they're starting their own pre-chiro club, just like they're starting their own practice in the future. How would you mentor a student, say at a local college or university, who wants to start their own pre-chiro club, and they want you to maybe just support them through conversation on what you think might be beneficial for them to do?
So yeah, I actually have done that quite a bit. Sherman College is about an hour from me. I teach knee chest. I have a lot. Sorry about that. Okay, are we back on?
Yeah, we're back on. We're back on.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. I guess my moon thing didn't work too good. Sorry about that. Okay, so you want me to start that one over? Okay, so I'm about an hour from Sherman College, and I do I mentor quite a few students. Actually, I have a lot of my associate doctors I mentored since they were early on in chiropractic school. I go down to Sherman quite a bit, and we'll come down and speak to the school. We'll speak to different clubs. If you're wanting to start your own club, then I would think the best thing to do is really right now, don't focus so much on the business, but focus more on the philosophy, understanding how you can communicate with patients. I think is huge. Practice that. If you have certain books, I would recommend any of the green books. I would definitely do volume 18, volume 25, bigness, history.
Oh, we keep losing you. We keep losing you. Try the half moon one more time.
So do not disturb off, do not disturb on. It says it's on.
I don't know
It
that.
says it's on.
It's okay. No worries. So just to reframe the question, just so that you're a little clearer on what I'm asking you. These are high school and college students. They haven't even gotten to chiropractic school yet, and they're starting a pre-chiro club on their college or high school campus and trying to connect chiropractic to the fellow students. I'm curious what you would do to support them and maybe encourage them, having started so many practices yourself, how you would guide them and support them in that process.
As in what I would recommend they do?
Yeah, maybe some ways that they could conduct a club meeting, or some ways that the club could promote and do a campaign on their college campus, or some ways that they might go to a guidance counselor and have a conversation with a guidance counselor about chiropractic.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So if you are interested in chiropractic and you have others that possibly are, and you're on a school campus or wherever you get a group together, I would say, for me, I have students who come to me a lot to my office in Shadow, and I actually have gone to like UNC Charlotte and spoken to it was usually a fairly small group, but there's got to be a chiropractor probably somewhere near you. I think a great idea would just say, hey, make a flyer, have a doctor present, is going to come in and give a talk on chiropractic. And most of us are willing to do that. If you talk to someone who, if they're not willing to do it, then they probably wouldn't be the right person anyway, because they probably don't love the profession like they should. But if, I've done it a few times. I've had people come into my office. I've had groups at night. I mean, actually every Wednesday night I have groups come up from Sherman College, and we have talks and we check people and adjust people and stuff like that. So for undergraduate group, I would welcome the same thing, probably even more so, because I get to share even more, because you got a lot to learn. And we can check people and adjust people and show people what we do. If anyone watches this, reach out to me. And I have a book I wrote. It's called The Best Kept Secret in Healthcare. And it is about what we do. And I give them to every single patient that walks in the door. And it's probably my best referral source that I use. And give them to them on their new patient visit and ask them to read at least the first 4 chapters before they come back. And it gives them kind of a better understanding of cervical chiropractic and what we're going to do and what they can expect. And then we ask them to give it to someone else. So it's a great it's written for patients, but it's a great way to understand how the body works and what we do as chiropractors. So, if you'd like, if you holler at me, I'll be happy to send you a book, maybe give you a better view from a different angle on what we do and, why I love it so much and why you should too. But anyway, if there's anything we can do to support you guys, I mean, as I said, we need more doctors, and whatever we can do to help support you guys need more. I mean, we can do Zoom calls if we can't be there. If you're at a distance school, I've got plenty of other doctor friends of mine. I promise you, I could turn you on to that would love to get involved with stuff like that as well.
I appreciate that so much, Doc. And I know the students would appreciate that when they hear this. I'm sure that they're going to really appreciate that, especially if they've listened this far in the conversation. I'm curious if you had a student that had like 3 to 6 months and wanted to do an independent study capstone project as a pre-chiro student before they even get to chiropractic school. If you with your awareness and your passion and your knowledge had, say, 3 to 6 months to give a prompt, a creative question that students could go and research or study or explore for 3 to 6 months that would enrich their experience once they got to chiropractic school. I'm just curious if there's anything that comes to you that you could maybe create for students out there to do for themselves.
Yes, it actually brings me to a short story. When I was in chiropractic school, I went to University of Kentucky, and I had some fraternity brothers I took a lot of the pre-med classes with, because they were going to medical school. I was going to medical school, and then we split off. But we're still buddies, and we were still friends. When I was in chiropractic school, I actually went back to Kentucky, and a friend of mine who actually was in medical school, like his 4th year medical school, had a party. And so I went to the party, and back then I was single, and there's a couple good looking girls, and I, mingled my way in and started talking to them, and it turns out one was a 4th year medical student, and one was finishing up her PhD in physiology, which was perfect. So when I went over, I started talking to them, and I was like, yeah, well, I'm in chiropractic school in St. Louis, and, the medical doctor's like, oh yeah, I don't believe in chiropractors. So of course, me being kind of the smart ass I am, I was like, no, I'm real, touch me, Phil, I'm real. And anyway, so we started talking a little bit. And so I was like, and I'm like, what do you mean you don't believe in chiropractic? I'm like, well, we focus on the nerve system. And I said, because, and I said, so, and she goes, why the nerve system? I said, well, what controls every function in your body? And she sat there for a minute, and she goes, the body's a self-controlling organism. And I'm like, duh. So yeah, okay. What makes your heart beat? What makes your stomach turn? Right. And then she goes, it's the endocrine system. I was like, oh my God. And so then I look at the physiology student, and I'm like, come on. I'm like, tell her what controls every function of the body. And she does. Finally, she kind of shrugged her shoulders, and she's like, it's the nerve system. And I was like, exactly. I was like, that's why we focus on the nerve system and making sure that as long as the body is communicating at 100%, everything is function the way it's designed. That's how the body functions, based off the nerve system. And so many people don't even know that. A lot of the medical doctors don't even acknowledge that, don't know that. So my question would be, if you're going to look something up, is start looking at embryology, and from embryology on, what happens with the nerve system. It's pretty phenomenal. If there's a video, I can't find it. I need to find it. I know it's out there, but that shows when the sperm meets the egg, and shows that location. And what happens is from that one, that's where the sperm meets the egg, is where life starts, right? That's innate intelligence, where it starts. And on one side sprouts the brain, and on the other side sprouts the spinal cord, and then you'll see the little buds coming off, which wind up being the organs. So what that means is, where the sperm hits the egg is the brainstem. that is what we call Houston control. That's the center of the entire nerve system, right? And then one side sprouts around. And so then when you start to see how that happens and how from there things come off of the nerve system, and then study how the messages from the brain to the body, what happens? How does that control the heart rate, the sympathetic versus parasympathetic and all that stuff? And then you learn the relationship. Everything that chiropractic is founded on is that existence of that nerve system. And then you can do a little research on innate intelligence. And, you may have to dig a little deeper on that. But when you understand that God really gave you everything you need to be well, stay well, heal yourself. When you get a cut, you don't have to put anything on it. You don't have to spray it. Just keep it clean and it heals itself. How does that happen? That's miraculous. Well, if it can happen on the outside, it can happen on the inside, no matter where it's at. We just need to make sure that all the communication is available to that part of the body and give it the opportunity to do what it needs to do. So when you start to understand that, it's a law. It's not a chance. It's not some people it works, some people it doesn't. That's what God gave you. And if you understand that and you can maximize that potential, as we have across the entrance of my office over the front desk, it says, expect miracles. That's what it says. The first thing people see when they walk in our office. And because we want them to start thinking that, they are a miracle. And if there's something miswired, then the miracle isn't quite so miraculous, right? And so if we can open that back up and the body can free itself and start functioning the way it was designed, it's incredible, and it's awesome. And our patients love us. They bring us presents and food and stuff all the time, and they will for you too. So I would say, I know that's a long answer to a short question, but the nerve system is the key, and how the body really, really, really works. Okay, it ain't no stupid endocrine system. What controls the endocrine system, right? The nerves control your adrenals and pituitary and hypothyroid, all that stuff. That's controlled by the nervous system. So that's the basic foundation. You understand that? Chiropractic makes so much sense.
Thank you so much for sharing with the students today. I really appreciate it, Dr. Drury. Can you kind of just share with students a little bit about the work that you're doing? When you go to Sherman, what are you sharing? Who are you speaking to? Why Sherman? Maybe just plug them a little bit, but also just talk about the work that you do with your team.
Okay. Yeah. So I founded the Knee Chest Society and the Knee Chest Academy. So the Knee Chest Society is a group of us doctors that do this particular upper cervical work, which is the same work BJ Palmer did in the research center. It's very specialized upper cervical procedure. So I started that, and we started the academy as part of the teaching process. We have a lot of our stuff online. Actually, everything is online, and then we do 4 to 5 hands-on seminars where people come in, and that's just to kind of fine-tune your skills. So at Sherman, because it's close, and Sherman is a great school, I've referred 13 students to Sherman and a couple down to Palmer, Florida, a couple to Palmer in my career. And so we go down there quite a bit and speak to the schools, speak to the clubs that are there. And we do 2 of our seminars every year. We do at Sherman on campus, make it easy for students. But if you can go to upper cervical, when you go to Knee Chest Academy.com or kneechestsociety.com, and you can learn a little bit more about our organization. I would just say, Sherman is one of the few schools that really teach an introduction to upper cervical. For me, that's great. Most of the other schools don't even mention it. And it's pretty well philosophically sound. And I know that because I'm there quite a bit, and I have had a lot of their students, compared to what I learned, they're well beyond what I learned about chiropractic at Logan. They get a much better understanding at Sherman. So it's a good school, and I would recommend you at least go visit it. It's in a little town of Spartanburg. It's an hour from Sherman, and we have quite a crew that comes up here on a regular basis to my office. We always welcome them, teach them, show them what we can, and we have fun.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with the students today, Dr. Drury. Have a great day. Appreciate you. And my hope is that any student going into chiropractic school, regardless of what school they go to, here's your message. Knows upper cervical, knee, chest specific isn't a specific pathway, that if they're interested in going deep with it, that there are schools out there that will at least provide that outlet by having people like you come to campus and facilitate seminars. And then obviously you mentioned a number of green books and a number of other resources. Is there any resources online that you're a particular fan of, whether it be YouTube channels or podcasts or specific websites that do a really great job of shining a light on the knee chest work?
Well, so my two websites, so they're connected. Upper Cervical's knee-chest-society.com. On YouTube, you can find me. I've got tons of stuff on there, and I get people from all over the world from our videos. Uppercervicalcare.com is more of a general chiropractic, general upper cervical organization. And then Greg Buchanan has a great site called upcspine.com. A lot of research. If you're kind of a research junkie, there's a lot of research there. I did actually a research study. I had 5 offices in Italy, and we did a study there on multiple sclerosis. We had 77 MS patients in 6 weeks. 100% of them improved. Now, they all weren't 100% well in 6 weeks, but every single patient, the medical doctors that did all the study in there, we did the care and they did the research. They came back to me and they said, we've never, ever done a study where 100% of patients improved. Where every single patient, and the cognitive improvement was number one for all of them. It was like 80% of them improved, had cognitive changes that improved. So amazing stuff that we do. But if there's anything I can do, feel free to reach out to me. I work with doctors all the time from all over the world. I travel quite a bit, speak quite a bit. And then of course I have our program that we are constantly, I'm reading x-rays, all day long. So if there's something that I can do to help you, encourage you, or give you direction, I'll be more than happy to do so for any students that are watching.